Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Old.
Are we there yet? You said 5 minutes. Technically, it's been more than 5 minutes.
Let's just all start slowing down.
And real quick before we get into this, if you could do me a favor and hit that like button, because that really does help this channel out so much. And with that, let's get into this. Alright, so I just went and saw the new M. Night Shyamalan movie called Old. And I guess my first thing I'd say is I'm not a big fan of the name. It's just kind of an odd choice for a name. But hey, M. Night is kind of a strange guy. Like, he's not your average movie maker. A lot of times I feel like he swings for the fences and just completely goes for whatever his idea is. And they don't always work. And when they crash and burn hard. And when they soar, they do soar very high and do really, really well. But unfortunately, I feel like a lot of his movies have been more of a swing and a miss than they have been knocking it out of the park, at least for my preference and what I like. Although I can really appreciate his artistic ideas, and I do see his vision in a lot of cases and what he's trying to do. But it doesn't mean that I necessarily enjoy what his vision is, but it doesn't mean I can't still appreciate what he's trying to get across. And that would be the case with this movie, because this movie is a mess in so many ways. But yet, in a strange way, I'm still really divided, like on the fence on if I like this movie or dislike this movie, much more than I feel like I've been for very many movies ever. Like, it's strange how this movie is so good in some ways and so bad in other ways, but I think the glaring stuff is just the stuff that's so bad. But let's get deeper into what this story is about and my thoughts in general. So the basic story and idea of this movie is what you'll see in the trailer. If you watch the trailer, you get a pretty good idea of the whole story of this movie, other than maybe a little bit of a twist somewhat towards the end. But the general idea of this movie is there's a family that goes on this vacation. They're on the rocks. Like, the family, the husband and wife are definitely not seeing eye to eye and are on the verge of separating. They go on this vacation not as a way to fix their relationship, but more as a way to kind of say goodbye to their relationship. So they're on this trip, and the people at the resort recommend they go to this beach. So they go with this sightseeing tour group kind of thing to this beach. They all get dropped off at this beach. And they're having a great time at first. And then strange things start to happen. And they basically start seeing that time is not passing normal. That time is passing much, much faster, and that these little kids are growing up like literally right before their eyes.
Hey, have you seen my children?
Mom? I'm right here.
And that's as far as I can really go with the story without ruining too much of it, and I don't want to do that. So stuff starts happening that's just really, really strange and very weird, and like I said, time passing in a very strange way, much more rapidly. That's where I gotta kind of tip my hat to M. Night, because a lot of the vision of the way he shows you time passing is really, really cool. But it's also where I have a problem with this movie, because it has a lot of holes. Like, he lays down these rules of this world, of all these things that are happening and basically how they work. And first of all, he does that in kind of a heavy-handed way where I feel like it's way over-explained, holding your hand more than it needs to. But a bigger problem I have with that is the characters in general, which I'll get more into later. But the way they explain literally exactly what they're doing, like, I am reaching and picking up a package of ketchup. Here you go. There's the ketchup. Like, crazy amounts of that. Like, it's really, really strange. And I know I've heard people talk about M. Night likes that. He instructs his actors to do this weird type of acting where they feel almost inhuman. And I get that. And I do see that vision that he's trying to go for. But I've seen that in all his movies. But this one in particular feels like it's over the top. It's done too much to the point where it distracts you from what's going on, and it continually keeps you detached from this moment. And for me, it was hard for me to get as invested and feel the intensity of the situation as much, because I just could not relate to these characters, and the way they were acting, it just felt very unnatural and just made no sense really. But back to the issue with the way you see time affecting things, the rules that he puts in place. Like, I really appreciate that, but at the same time, the movie broke its own rules over and over and over again to where you're like, okay, so the rules apply to these people, but don't apply to these people, and it just left things very confusing and just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, the way the kids age, supposedly it's one way, but then they say that, okay, when you reach adulthood, your cells slow down, so you stop aging as rapidly, right? Okay, so you're like, that makes sense, but then the kids continue to age in a way that's way different than from anyone else in the movie.
There's something wrong with this beach.
What's happening? Mom!
You don't see the adults aging much at all, but yet the kids just continue to rapidly age. And I can't get too much into that really because it will kind of spoil who lives, who dies, and what happens to people. But let's just leave it at the fact that it doesn't really follow its own rules in a lot of cases, and not just with that. So, not to go too much all over the place, but it's kind of hard to not when you're talking about a movie like this that's really all over the place. But with that being said, let's get into more about the actors. So, I really appreciated the kids. In the very beginning of this movie, the actors that play the small children, especially this little boy, he's hilarious and he's so charismatic and likable. And just in general, him and this little boy hit off this friendship, and they're just adorable to watch because you can really remember being a kid watching these two. Just the way they talk and the way they see the world, it's really fun. And I really appreciated that, and I thought it was extremely well written and just one of my favorite parts of this movie. But with that being said, because this movie is about aging, some of the characters have very different actors playing them at different points as they get older, right? They did a really good job of casting as far as the way the characters looked, but I'm not so sure that they did a great job in casting so much the way they acted. Each actor felt very different. Like, they felt like they weren't quite connecting with the actors before them on this character that they were playing. It wasn't horribly done, but it didn't quite translate as well as some did. Like, some of them did a really good job and others were not quite as strong. But the main issue I have with the acting, I don't really think it's the actor's fault, because it looks like the cast, I know I recognize some of them from different projects, and they're all really strong actors that do a fantastic job in anything I've seen them in. So I feel like there's this really strange disconnect and this really wooden way of dealing with emotions and the way they talk throughout the whole movie. And maybe that's that whole M. Night thing where he instructs his actors to not act normal human. I don't know, but for whatever reason, the actors really at times felt bizarre, like they had no idea what they were doing, and they would go back and forth. And I guess that's my issue with everything in this movie. You'd go from one scene that was really well done and had you just fully invested to the next scene where you're literally laughing out loud because of how outlandish and ridiculous some stuff is, the way the characters are saying these things or what's actually happening on the screen, and not in a way that's meant to be funny at all. It's not meant to be campy funny. It's not meant to be over the top funny. Like, this is meant to be chilling and disturbing, and yet you can't help yourself but bust out laughing because there's just these things that are so outlandish. But then it'll go to another scene that's just flat out bad. It just isn't shot very well. And that's something that's really bizarre in this movie, is the way it's shot. Because for the most part, the location, the way spacing is done, the camera work, just everything is gorgeous. But there's these really weird camera ideas and decisions where the camera almost, it's almost like it's broken. You're sitting here looking at this one thing, and then it just kind of randomly out of nowhere just falls back, and you're looking out into space where characters are still talking and you're supposed to be involved in this conversation, and it's so distracting. Or it'll go to the right randomly or to the left, and it's not like B-roll. It's just this really bizarre choices with how the camera works. There's also these very weird things, and I kind of get this one, but out of nowhere, the screen gets kind of blurry, and not the whole screen, but certain parts of the screen. And I do get somewhat what he's trying to do there, because it is dealing with a little bit of like people losing their mind or aging, and their brains going in some way, their eyesight's going in different ways, things like that. And I do get that, but some of it just feels really annoying. because you're trying to pay attention to something, and it'll be these things that instead of making you feel uncomfortable and strange and all that, which I think is the intention, it'll just kind of take you out of the movie in general and just break this tension that it needs to be building, because it would be much more disturbing if you were left in that moment instead of being continually distracted by weird stuff. So that's the thing in general with this movie. A lot of my issue with this movie is the choices that M. Night made, because I think the source material is extremely strong. The story in general, I feel like, is very captivating and interesting from beginning to end. The things that happen and why they happen and how they happen and the whole meaning behind it all is very interesting. But the choices of why he does certain artistic things, I feel like, are distracting in most cases. In a lot of ways, just kind of ruin what should be a fantastic movie as far as the source material. All of these things are creative choices. And I do, as an artist, respect the fuck out of what M. Night was trying to do. I just, like any artist, sometimes you hit the target, and a lot of times you don't, especially if you're an artist who's daring. And honestly, to be great in a lot of ways, I feel like you have to be daring and take chances. I just feel like a lot of the chances and the things that he did try to do in this just really don't work that well. Now, as far as the twist, most people go into an M. Night movie thinking about the twist. Like, he's become famous at this point for his crazy twist. And there is a twist in this, sorta. But you pretty much have a good idea about halfway into this movie, at least I did, of what the deal is, like what's going on. And I feel like there's less of a twist than you're kind of wanting, so it isn't quite that ending that you're really hoping for. But I still don't think it's a bad ending. It does make sense, and I do like that it does leave you thinking about it, and that's something I've always enjoyed a lot about M. Night stuff, is that it leaves you thinking and kind of mulling over what the true meaning and what the message to the movie is. And I was just talking to a friend about what we think the meaning of the ending was. So to sum it up, unless you're a big fan of M. Night and you can't miss his movies sort of thing, this is one that I would wait for streaming services for. It is an entertaining movie, so it's not one I'm saying skip completely, but it's just not good enough, and it does have a lot of issues, and I think will be polarizing because a lot of people won't see past those issues and just will really not enjoy this movie. But I still do think it's entertaining enough that it's worth watching when it hits HBO or Netflix or something like that, just not really going to spend $15 in a theater. Alright, that's going to do it for me today. Please leave your comments down below. I would love to hear what you guys thought of this, or if you plan to go see it this weekend, or if you're going to pass. And I'd also really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this at least 2 times every week. And I also want to give a big, huge, enormous thank you to my patrons, because you guys mean everything to me. And if you would like to find out more about becoming a patron, the link is down in the description. And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. I will see you guys next time.